Okay guys, regarding our feet when it comes to skating and why we can often get some pain on the base of our foot. I've had quite a few messages, some saying they've got very high arch, some they've got very low arch, stiff foot, pain going across the bottom. So we're going to have some comparisons of what the foot does or should do, what happens when it can't do the things it should do, and the potential outcomes of that and what we can do about it. So first of all, pay attention to how many joints we have in the foot. 33, a lot. So if your foot has that many joints, you'd expect that to mean that that foot should have quite a lot of movement. To simplify all this, what your foot should be able to do, walking for example, is it should be able to flatten. Okay, so you should be able to go flat. And it should be able to also create an arch to pass through a gait cycle of what's referred to as when you're walking. Think about when you're pushing on a skateboard, what your foot does and doesn't do. We spend an awful lot of time on our boards on the mid and forefoot. Heel doesn't go on the board at all very much. So in this video here showing a push, you push through the forefoot, and the foot that's on the board tends to be gripping the board to maintain balance. That foot that's on the board is not relaxed. You're creating that little bit of tension which creates the arch, and the most messages that I had yesterday was about a high arch and stiff foot. So what we want to try and do is get an arched foot the ability to flatten, and a flat foot the ability to arch. That's all we're looking at doing here. So what's called pronation when your foot flattens, and supination when the foot creates an arch again. Because all this will have a knock-on effect on what's moving up the chain. Because if that mid-foot isn't able to spread and flatten, then the next joint is going to have to try and take over that job, and it isn't designed to do the work of that mid-foot. So the ankle might end up then taking too much on, and then the knee, and then the hip, etc., etc. So the more movement we can get back into the foot, then the less stress we're going to have through the rest of the body. So we're going to look at the heel bone, because it's not just a lump that doesn't move. The heel bone is designed to move left to right a little bit, up and down a little bit, and rotate in and rotate out. And because skaters don't put their heels down very much, and this is all theoretical, I imagine that most skaters' heels are quite stiff and tight, because they just don't move very much. So another way to explain why we want the foot to be able to flatten and open is if we look at the video here of my board turned upside down, is the elasticity you get between that foot going flat and then pushing off again. The ability to go flat gives you more motion. So look, if I'm standing on the board upside down, the flex pushes down, and then as soon as I take my foot off the board, it springs back up again. So we want our foot to be able to kind of mimic that. It's not just flat, but we want to be able to mimic that flattening, and then the opposite of that, then the closing. Okay, so think about your foot opening as it goes flat, and then closing as the arch creates. If you're stuck in an arch, that tissue is really short and stiff. If you're flat, it's stretched out and will have less ability to press back into that arch. Okay, first thing we want to look at is how well does your foot move? Paying particular attention to your heel bone. Like I mentioned in the previous one, our heels don't spend an awful lot of time on the board when we're skating, either on the pushing leg or when we're standing. Most of our weight, most of the time, tends to be mid-foot to forefoot. It has to be in order for us to balance and create movement on the board. We can create more movement through that mid and forefoot than with feet completely flat. So you're just going to take one foot, grab your heel, and hold the front of your foot. We don't want to create movement through the front, we're just looking at the heel. Can you move your heel up and down, back forward, rotate? Okay, there won't be an awful lot of movement here, but it should feel like it can move without your whole ankle coming with it. We're trying to focus on the heel, which is why we want to hold our fore and midfoot still. You can almost see that back and forth, which is what we want. If that doesn't move, don't worry. That just means it's got a bit jammed up, and by doing this more, you're going to start to free that heel up a little bit. You're then going to focus on the mid and the forefoot. So you're going to hold your heel still and you're going to twist your foot. So big toe knuckle down, little toe knuckle up, and then the other direction. This feels pretty good. For me, that feels really good. And you're just going to go back and forth. You can wrap your hands around your entire toe. We just want to see how much movement we've got through all those bones of the mid and forefoot. Can they twist side to side? Can they go forwards and back? The third one is you're going to put the both together. So I'm going to rotate my foot whilst I pull my heel in the opposite direction. So as I rotate my big toe down, I'm going to pull my heel up. And then the same on the other side. Push my heel down, pull my big toe in the other direction. I'm just going to go back and forth. And I can also pull my heel back and forth, shorten my toe. So I shorten the distance of my heel and my big toe, and then lengthen. But you need to make sure that your foot is relaxed when you're doing it. You're not trying to fight it. You're also not trying to force it as far as it will go. Any movement is good movement. Okay, see how many ways you can create movement through that entire foot. Right, so now let's look at getting that foot moving by adding load over it. Important thing about this is we're not trying to spread the foot. We've got to allow our body weight to do the work. Because when we're walking or pushing, when you're pushing on a skateboard, you're not thinking of what's happening at your foot. It's just happening through the movement. And it's the same as this. So what we're trying to basically do is get your entire body weight over the middle of your foot so that gravity and your body weight is allowing your foot to spread and open. We need to let gravity do the work for us. This may seem almost too simple, but it's incredibly beneficial for allowing the foot to do what the foot is designed to do. So I'm basically got my foot flat, my back foot is just there help to balance, my knee is drifting forwards, my body is following my knee, but as soon as my weight gets over my midfoot, I'm thinking relaxed, my toes are relaxed, I'm not gripping the floor, and then I'm rocking back and allowing that leg to straighten. When we do this, what should happen is as I drift forwards, my foot should flatten or go into that pronated position. So my arch should start to go towards the floor. And then when I shift back, my foot should open, so I should close, and the arch should reappear. We need to make sure that your big toe knuckle, your little toe knuckle, and your heel always stay in contact with the floor. If when I push forwards, my little toe knuckle comes off the floor and I basically just twist onto the inside of my foot, that's not the foot moving, that's the ankle. And if I move backwards and my big toe comes off and I roll onto the outside of my foot, that's my ankle doing the work and your foot is still staying stiff. So a good way to test this is to get a small rolled up sock and just place it in front of your heel, just underneath your arch, not all the way under, so that as I then drift forwards, I should feel my arch pressing into the sock. And then when I rock back, I should feel my arch coming off the sock. You will feel the weight shift from left to right and back to front. That's totally normal, but nothing should actually come off the floor. It's a really good idea to video yourself doing this from the side so you can actually see what's happening at your arch. Okay, so what can we start doing about it if we have a really high arch that doesn't like flattening, vice versa if we have a flat foot that doesn't like arching? Bearing in mind that neither of those are terrible things, don't worry about it. We just want to get some relative motion back in the foot. So to help with the first one, i.e. you've got a very high arch and your foot doesn't like to flatten, what you're going to do for that is grab two small socks, place one of them under your big toe, so under the big toe knuckle and almost the whole toe itself, not just out to the side, and the other one where you originally had that one under the arch in front of the heel. So now I've got a sensory for my big toe and my arch. So as I rock forwards, I should feel my big toe dropping into the sock, my arch dropping into sock, then coming back in it and weighing from it. And if you do about 10 or 20 of these with the socks, then take the socks away. Can you feel that arch now dropping a little more? You may not straight away. This might take a lot of reps, hundreds of reps in fact, do it every day. But the idea is to allow that arch to drop and not forcing it to drop. We want that foot to spread. If your foot is very flat and doesn't like to arch, the simplest way to try and sort that out or do something about that is when you come back, make sure that leg goes all the way straight, completely locked out. That then you're more likely to create an arch there as you are there. You know, a lot of people will rock forwards, get the foot nice and flat, get to here and then go back in again without fully locking out and opening the arch on that foot. And when you do that, that big toe is going to really feel, if you've got a stiff foot, it's going to feel like it wants to do that and rock to the side. Don't let the big toe come off, but let that arch and let that foot shorten on the bottom before rocking back into the next one. So first of all, we're looking at what the foot is designed to do. Flatten, open, shorten, close. Can it do that? Test that out with that foot manipulation. If your heel doesn't move very well, then the whole foot isn't going to flatten or arch very well. So get that heel moving. Same with the mid and the forefoot. Get those bones moving by manipulating with your own hands. Once you've got that and you've got some movement, move on to the pronation and the supination exercise. And if you have that very high arch, put those socks under the arch of your foot and under the big toe. If you've got a very flat foot, make sure you rock all the way back to that leg straight to try and force that arch. And this just takes loads of reps. I'm talking every day, 10 to 20 on each foot, a few times a day, but the focus is paying attention to what's happening. Not trying to force anything, not trying to force your foot flat. This is not an ankle mobility exercise. This is a foot opening and closing exercise, but you have to let gravity and your body weight do the work and don't force any of it. As soon as you start forcing it, you're stiffening up that foot even more. So do this for at least a month. You might start to notice a difference after 2 weeks. So any questions, drop them in the comments. If it helps, drop it in the comments. If it doesn't, drop it in the comments. I've got a program, foot and ankle program, that's linked down there, 4-stage program to help strengthen and mobilize that whole area. But I'd love to know how you get on with this, if it makes sense. Share it with somebody who's got really stiff feet, but to be honest, everybody could do with opening and closing their feet up a little bit. So good luck with it all, and let me know how you get on.